I think psychedelics is a good way to just let ourselves enter that liminal space. And I think this is even just good medicine for myself to say this at the moment, that I think a lot of us really want to fix the confusion or the not knowing. And I think the actual work or practice is the same as it always is. Like, can we just be with what is here right now?
All right, YouTube friends, Ketamine Connections, I'm Anna Krishdal. This is a short clip to remind you that the video you're about to see is not made for YouTube. It is simply a video recording of me recording the Ketamine Connections podcast that you can find on Spotify, you can find on iTunes, you can find on Amazon. Honestly, pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, Ketamine Connections is there. And we want to get it on YouTube because we have all of this amazing video. Some of you are really enjoying watching me record this. So that is what this video is. It's not designed for YouTube. And I hope you enjoy. And please let me know below in the show notes if you're liking this format, because we want to do the things that you like, the things that help you and really serve you, because this is really for you. What is it that you can turn to in the darkest time in your life that will bring comfort and faith into the uncertainty, the confusion? And where do you even find that when you're in the darkest times? Ketamine Connections, welcome back. I am excited for you to hear this conversation today with Kevin Cannella. Kevin is a MAPS trained psychotherapist, and the conversation that we wove today spanned time and space, both 3D and 5D. We went back into time to talk about his journey into psychotherapy, about how themes in life tend to repeat, and how we can often find ourselves in this darkness, this confusion, this honestly chrysalis space where we are in the space of transformation. You'll hear it in the episode. We talk about it in the sense of liminal space. If you've never heard of liminal space, I highly recommend you listen in and get the metaphor that I provided into how to think about transformation. I talk about it all the time on the show that the subconscious mind is wired for familiarity, for patterns to repeat, for the same old, same old. And anytime you are on the path of change and growth and expansion, there is going to be friction. I talked about it in the episode of, you get squeezed. And when you get squeezed, what's the juice that comes out? You squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. What happens when you get squeezed? What is your flavors that get to come out? We also talked about trusting the process, which is such a big theme in psychedelic space. We talked about walking a spiritual path and how there is faith and trust that comes into that life choice. And we talked about so many elements of the human experience that I think this is one of those episodes that you can listen to multiple times, and every time you're going to get something new. Kevin's journey with what he does now, which is psychotherapy, began on a windy path. It included traveling to South America and meeting ayahuasca. It included moving to Hawaii and getting close to nature. It included multiple trust falls and multiple leanings into faith in taking this windy path that has made sense only in hindsight. We often talk about on this show how psychedelics are one access to altered states of consciousness, and Kevin has so much experience with others. We talked about his experience with Vipassana, which is silent meditation that is quite rigorous. We talked about his experience with Sufism. And again, we spanned so many different topics that it's so exciting for me to have a guest that has such a range of wisdom and scope to bring to you as the audience who gets to learn and grow. I know that if I were listening to this episode, I'd probably be writing down some keywords to then dive into deeper for your own evolution and growth. Kevin went on to establish a nonprofit called Thank You Life. We didn't talk about it much in this episode, but really just what a powerful human Kevin is to make anything in his life possible. I have so much admiration for him and who he is in the world. And if you're interested in deeper topics and you want to save yourself the Google, hop onto my email list because that is where I go into deeper themes around the collective energy of the week, subconscious themes. And it's the best way for you to take the next step in listening to the Ketamine Connections podcast. So without further ado, Kevin Cannella, enjoy the episode. Kevin Cannella, welcome to Ketamine Connections.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We start off with the same question. If you can go back and tell a past version of you anything, what would you say?
Yeah, so I have been thinking about basically like a kind of like a time range where I would, I guess, kind of say the same thing to myself. And that would be at some point between 2010 and 2014 or so. During this time, it was after my college experience, and I went on this spiritual journey that, was really potent for me, really amazing. And I think what I would tell myself during that time is to really trust that it's going somewhere. Yeah, something I often bring up with a lot of clients actually is this commencement speech that Steve Jobs gave at Stanford. And he tells a couple of these stories, but he tells this kind of story of his life where his point is that we can only connect the dots looking backwards and that we have to trust in something. So that's yeah, I would go back and tell myself, like, you can trust that this is going somewhere and that the dots are not making some fucking scribble around. It's making something cohesive and that will make sense in time.
I love that you said scribble around because now I have the image of those games where you connect the dots and it is a scribble around, but if you just keep connecting them, it makes an image. So yeah, just trusting it doesn't have to be linear either.
Totally. And I think that's how it felt for a while. And to be honest, I think in some ways I could really use that same advice now. I feel like I'm perhaps a couple steps up from where I was then and on a different plane. But yeah, perhaps there's the 50-year-old version of myself out there somewhere having the same conversation, letting me know that it will all connect moving forward as well.
Oh man. I'm curious that version of you, that post college 2010 to 2014 version of you, how dark was it, right? If you're offering trust and hope and like, oh, it'll make sense one day, like what was that experience like back then?
Yeah, it's interesting. In some ways, it didn't seem that dark. And I got to be in some really beautiful places. I spent a long time in Hawaii, which was amazing, but also didn't have much money. I wasn't going after money. So I was having these amazing experiences that I really wanted to have. But yeah, a lot of loneliness and I think just a lot going on in my own process. And the Fool card from the tarot was like very much the sort of card of that time. And I actually was able to connect with that part in a medicine session within the last year or so. And actually had all of this gratitude for the like courage slash naivete that part had. And a part of it was absolutely courage to just sort of really embody that full and kind of like walk off the cliff and just say like, hey, universe, take me. But yeah, there was definitely depression there. There was a lot of community, but yeah, also a lot of loneliness. And as I'm speaking, I think powerlessness is a bit of a theme and perhaps something that was really there that I kind of acutely felt. And with that, I think the vision, like if we were to put the fear that I had into like some imagery, it was, and I would like say this to people, like that there's this fear that I would wake up in Hawaii in my 40s, living on somebody else's farm, being like some kind of pothead, not really doing much with my life. In essence, that this kind of path that I was on didn't lead anywhere. I'm sure we could dig into my psychology to find out all kinds of reasons why that was the thing for me. But yeah, that I think that was a lot of the darkness and what I was like I would hear from people back on the East Coast, like, oh my God, you went to Georgia Tech and you're doing what now? Ayahuasca, what is that? And like, you're just on some farm. And then when I would turn toward money, I'd make like $10 an hour doing like some intense physical labor on somebody else's farm. And after 3 hours, my back would be like super sore and I would have $30 and just feel so far away from, this quality of abundance that is very much a part of the spiritual path. And yeah, I think all of that felt in moments felt like its own sort of thing that I was trapped in. Like how do I get myself out of this?
Interesting. It's interesting because you mentioned the Fool card, and the Fool card is it's not even the first card in the tarot, it's like the 0 card in the tarot. And it's that blind optimism. It's that like moving forward without any sort of attachment, or maybe there's just this blind faith, right? Of the Fool card of like moving forward. But then you're talking about like the side by side with all the darkness. And so it's interesting. Do you feel that the Fool card betrayed you in some way?
No, not at all. In the sense that like it did lead somewhere. And on one hand, it like led to my path that I ultimately, have been taking the past 10 years or so. But it also kind of just like in itself, those years led me to really rich experiences that, fundamentally transformed who I am, how I see the world, how I see, my relationship with spirituality, and really gave me connection and practices. So yeah, I would say absolutely not. Much the other way. It gave me exactly what I was trying to go after, which was to deepen myself and try to figure out what the fuck is going on here.
Yeah, I had a very similar experience post college where I just followed whatever felt great in the moment. It wasn't, again, it's like I was collecting the dots, not knowing that they were going to make a really beautiful connect the dot picture. But it was this feeling of, I'm not doing what any of my peers are doing post college. All of my peers went into the workforce. I went to grad school. All of my peers, continued in the workforce. I taught English abroad. I started leading study abroad, not knowing at any point that it was ever going to lead to a career. And then when it did, it was this beautiful, yeah, like all the pieces came together in a way that I don't think I could have foreseen how perfect it was going to be. I was just doing what my intuition was guiding me towards, of like, well, the only thing I want to do is move abroad, so I'm just going to do that. The only thing that I want to do is, take other students abroad to experience the magic of travel. And so it really is this what you were saying earlier so beautifully of you have to find trust in something.
Yeah, as you were saying that, I almost feel like a contraction that I feel in kind of this moment in life. And I really want to get back to that trust. It feels strange to have felt that be such a giant piece of what was going on for me for so long. And then to be like, oh my God, there's like more. There's more of that that's being asked me. Fuck.
Yeah. It reminds me, I often talk about with my client work, the path isn't linear, and it's this spiral staircase. So we are going to revisit the same themes over and over from a different vantage point, and having, a lived experience of, wow, everything really does have a way of coming together that only makes sense in hindsight, right? Only hindsight is 2020, but in a lot of the path forward, um I mean, even when there's perceived confidence or perceived safety, right? I'm going to go to college and then I'm going to graduate college and I'm going to get this kind of job. I graduated college in 2008. That was not a thing. It was the financial crash was happening as like the last semester is happening. It's just like, oh wow, like this contract that we have in society that is exists purely on the confirmation bias and nothing else is broken, and even moving forward, I think there's two things, right? That of like the man plans and God laughs type of situation, or other ways where we get to I don't know anyone on any sort of path, psychedelic, spiritual, personal growth and development, that doesn't reach this sort of place of, okay, what do I actually believe in? What can I put my stake of faith into? Because it has to be something beyond my own mechanism of control, my own imagination, because it's so limited by my own life experience. And how do I find out what that is and then move from that place?
I have a couple thoughts that were coming up as you said that, which is like, I like that, like we have to believe in something that you said back. And I think what a lot of us were offered to believe in, that almost like kind of believe in by default, is this the like dream of, like the kind of collective dream of society. And I think part of that is that there will be jobs when you graduate college, kind of, that it's that whole thing, right? And I think the out picturing of that is that, and then when you're 60, there'll be this retirement time. And
Yeah.
it's like, that's all this one kind of dream that I think a lot of people, again, just by default believe in. And yeah, I graduated in 2009. So it sounds like you were right in the middle of it. But yeah, I think for a lot of us at that time, yeah, we're just shoved into the workforce, and that dream is like immediately kind of shaken at the very least, of like, oh, okay, like what we were bought and sold maybe isn't the case so much. So that was one thought of this. Just, yeah, it's like, if I don't, yeah, just kind of what's like force fed to us if we don't go off on our own path. And then in terms of like what we end up believing in.
I talk about this in client work as the prescription, right? It's like this societal contract that you're talking about, in the West, for so many of us, it's, go to college, get a job, start a family, retire, right? That's kind of like the skeleton of our societal system. And it's like this prescription of like, here you go. Society says that if you follow these steps and you do it with, whatever metrics of success, your socioeconomic bracket offers, then you're going to be happy. And I'm so grateful, in thinking back to a dark time in my life, of that I hit those metrics really quickly, even though I didn't get a job out of college for what was it, like 4 or 5 years, just with the path that I took with grad school and then study abroad and all of that. So I didn't get my first like real job, like sitting in an office type of, what I thought a real job was, for a few years. And I was able to uh, excel and move up really quickly. I exceeded expectations for my career growth of what I was able to accomplish in 2 years. Like I caught up to my peers who had been in the workforce for 6 years in 2 years, which was amazing, impeccable. And I was like, cool, I did the thing, and I did it my way. And now I'm like sitting in this like, corporate executive position, and not every day, but so many days, at least once a week, I am laying on my apartment floor staring at the ceiling going, I'm supposed to be happy now. Like what, like feeling a sense, I felt betrayed by that. Actually, I think in hindsight I felt betrayed. At the time, I asked the age old question that had been asking for most of my life, like what's wrong with me? Like I'm supposed to be happy.
That's where my mind went, like, oh yeah, you just internalized it and thought, oh, I'm doing something wrong because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think a lot of people just get stuck there too. So good for you for not ultimately getting stuck there.
Or people, right, go, okay, well then I got to do it bigger. I got to do it better. I got to do scale it, right? It's like, okay, if I'm not happy in this position, well, the promotion will make me happy. If I'm not happy in a one bedroom, a two bedroom will make me happy. And thinking that something more outside of yourself is going to fill a hole, like a bucket with a hole inside of yourself. No matter how much you pour into it, it's draining as fast as you pour into it.
Yeah, I love that analogy. So a second thought with all of that is that I noticed that in this conversation, I noticed that I think I went from that collective dream to my own sort of dream around like just I think like what was going on at this time in humanity. And I guess it was for me like a little bit more spiritual of a dream. And that was very interesting to me. And yeah, I think these ideas that a lot of us might be familiar with in like a more spiritual sort of space of like a collective awakening happening right now. And in some ways, I feel like even that is starting to crumble for me or like not be something I can really grip onto like I perhaps have been in the past. And it reminds me of something that you were saying to me yesterday of just like presence. I forget what the context was when you brought up presence, but that just came up to me of like, oh, that might be what's really being asked of me at this moment is to let go of holding on to even just like my own sort of dream and can I just be in the presence and trust and yeah, it feels a bit scary to like let go of any sort of kind of construct that at least yeah, that can feel like safe to hold on to.
You mentioned earlier feeling that theme of like that version of the 2010 to 2014 version of you, that theme kind of spiraling back around, and you feeling like you want that message now of like trust that it's going somewhere.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Say more.
Oh no. Yeah, I was telling you a little bit about this yesterday. I think it's like, yeah, I'm just in such an interesting moment. And I think you named it really well when you named it as like a liminal space that I'm in. And I feel very fortunate that at certain moments, I get these really clear intentions about the next step and what the next step is going to be about. And in some ways, I do feel that at the moment. It came like last month that at the moment for me, it's really about opening to my masculine leadership and my spiritual leadership in both like my personal sphere and also my professional sphere. And that all feels really good, but you know, is also a bit vague in a particular way. You know, the couple before that, one came through really strongly when I graduated from grad school and got into psychotherapy. And it was to start a private practice and have that be a launching pad for my career and to get into psychedelics. And I feel like the sort of culmination of all of that happened over the past 3 years when I started Thank You Life, this nonprofit, and then in June passed that off to new leadership. And it's that kind of thing that created the liminal space. It's like, okay, that was as far as I took that last really clear. And, you know, after that, I got a clear message of go start this nonprofit and go start it now. And so like kind of continuing on, but now giving that off to new leadership in June, yeah, I'm just really entering this liminal space. And on one hand, just want to do my best to let this be a really expansive time and yeah, not hold on to things and not try to come up with answers too quickly. I think you said something yesterday that was like, yeah, this is where the gold is in the liminal space. So I think you're right. And I think we're only able to really get the gold like the more that we can just let ourselves be in the confusion or in the you know in the not knowing. So in some ways I feel right there. I have enough direction, like I still do have like my next steps, which has been you know a couple of these trainings that I'm doing at the moment to really like sharpen my clinical skills because it's not a lot of what I've been doing the past few years. But in terms of like a really clear 5 or 10 year kind of vision or anything. It's just not here at the moment. And I think for especially having that most of the last few years, it's fucking uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
super uncomfortable.
Oh, I have so much to say. Where do I want to start? One is I like to say this of right, the discomfort, the confusion, the liminal space that we can talk more about for the audience that might not know what that is, but it's like you're a fruit getting squeezed. What's the juice that's going to come out, right? It's like these moments that the pressure, right? What is it going to create? And it's this very natural process. We see it all through nature of the pressure that creates some sort of outcome, whether it's in the minerals or in the flora, or really anywhere. And I talk about this. I've been talking about this in this way for years of intuition, higher guidance, speaks in the next smallest step. Because if you think about it, like back you living in Hawaii, it just made sense, right? But if that sort of voice came down and was like, "Hey, you're going to move to Hawaii and you're going to experience psychedelics, and then you're going to become a psychotherapist, and then you're going to do start a nonprofit, and then you're going to, hand that off, and then you're going to like," it's just like, bro, like, I'm not ready for all that. Like, what? I just graduated college. Like, let me live, And so it really is like the path unfolds as you walk it. And the smarter you are, the more hardworking and motivated, ambitious you are, you're like, but where is this path going? And it's like you don't get to read the last page of the chapter or the last page of the book. You just get to live it. And the other thing that I wanted to say.
I just want to flip through the table of contents to be like, okay, where's this going? And then, okay.
But it's a choose your own adventure book, so there is no table of contents.
Yeah, totally. Whew.
I lost whatever point I wanted to make, but the next smallest step for sure. But for the people listening, I mean, I just went through the bullet points of your story, but let's let the audience know, right? Like, you graduated college, you moved to Hawaii, you learned about ayahuasca before anyone I knew about it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not before anybody, but yeah, like definitely like early days. Yeah, so I spent 7.5 months in Peru as well, right after school, and yeah, similar to you, this was actually, I think, really the first time a clear intention came as I was graduating, and it was that I wanted to go abroad and I wanted to continue my studies into all this spirituality. And I ended up hearing about ayahuasca and there was like one friend I had in Atlanta that was not connected to Georgia Tech, and she was in like the spiritual scene. And we're actually both, shout out to Maya Lemberg, we're both psychedelic therapists, which is kind of crazy now because that didn't really exist at the time. But yeah, I had a feeling that she would know what ayahuasca is, so I asked her about it and was how can I do this? She was like, oh, there's like retreat centers down in South America that you can go to. So I Googled ayahuasca retreat centers and emailed 3 of them asking for volunteer positions, and one of them got back to me, and yeah, kind of off I went after I graduated. That kind of whole moment was very much that full card of like me stepping off the cliff and just being like, okay. So it was that was difficult, lonely, but yeah, really like planting amazing seeds from the early Aya. And then I also did my first Vipassana there. Not at the center, but while I was there, I heard about Vipassana, and then found one outside of Lima, Peru, and did that. And then, the following year, landed on Maui, was there for about 4.5 years, found ayahuasca there, a lot of Vipassana on the Big Island that I would go to every year. And then just a lot of stuff. There's a lot of Sufism there that I really dove into a lot. Yeah. So, I had a lot of my 20s was just like very rich in terms of spiritual experience, and almost like a retreat sort of life where I really got to focus inward. I wasn't really dating. I wasn't really going after money. I was really able to have some just really special years focused on my internal work. And then by the time I was 26, 27, I kept hearing about the Saturn return and began to get this pull to kind of get my shit together more or less, and to just really like do something. And besides abundance, we would also talk about service, purpose, dharma, like all of these things. And, people would always say too, like, your dharma can be sweeping the kitchen. And I think that's beautiful on one level. And I also was just like, cool. But I don't think, like, I think there's more for me than just that or whatever. Around that time, I really started to like turn toward what did I just go through, and what would be a fitting like kind of next step. And this is when another one of those really clear intentions came through, which was to align my work, my finances, my gifts and talents, and my purpose, dharma. And I feel very fortunate. I had that intention and then left Maui, had this very full summer planned out. And I think the full summer really helped. So I wasn't constantly churning on this fucking intention. Like, oh, what's it going to be? And I didn't have to go into figure it out mode. I just got to be present with some travel and different things. And that was amazing. And and then what came out of there was just in this one moment, I was down in Brazil at the end of the summer, and there was a lot of folks from Boulder there. And there was this one woman who, in one conversation, like 4 times, just was like, you should move to Boulder. 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 And went back and like meditated in my little cot. And my mind was just churning on Boulder. And actually, the whole previous year, I lived with somebody who kept telling the story of how in the 70s he went to Naropa's like opening summer seminar thing. And he told that story a few different times. And so Naropa in Boulder was like already kind of like very much linked in my mind. And, within a couple of days of this woman saying that I should move to Boulder, I was, looking at their psychotherapy programs, these master programs, and and it kind of all unfolded from there.
What was your undergrad degree?
Business and computer. It was computer science was my major for a couple of years, and then I switched to business management.
Okay. I want to say a few things for those that are listening and are like, what the heck is Vipassana? Vipassana is a 10-day silent retreat that is not for the faint of heart. I have not yet done it, but I know so many people that come out of it, and it's, like, it's not just silent. So it's not just you and your own thoughts. There's no eye contact. It's a very rigorous, you're meditating for what, 17 hours a day, something like that.
And then
10 and a half. Oh, just that. Just 10 and a half. And yeah, and it's epic. It's amazing. And I know that it's a seed that was planted a long time ago. I heard about it, so long ago. And one day that seed might sprout for me, maybe not, but I again know so many people coming out of it that are just, there's so much clarity and so much that comes through when you just are able to let the mind kind of work itself out in that length of time. I mean, 10 days is no joke.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great way to put it. In it, he gives a couple analogies of what it all does, and one is like that, like one of those wind up dolls that, but it's like life is like we're just constantly winding it and not letting it unwind and do its little dance or whatever. And Vipassana is like, okay, for 10 days we're going to stop winding it and let it all kind of and the other one is like a rope that if you just keep like twisting it and all this pressure builds, and when you finally stop twisting it, it kind of like unravels itself. It's like 10 days to like let some of that unravel. And I had one friend who described the 10 days as like landing the plane, and that he, they suggest to do one a year. I haven't quite done that, but I've done a few of them, and that's very much how I look at it. Is like I get to go back and yeah, just lay in the plane a bit, take a rest, refuel.
In the times that you've gone back, if like the rope is getting twisted, 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 say for 30 years, and then you untwist it, and then it gets twisted for, say, 5 years. It's not the same level of tension. So have you found when you've gone back that the plane lands easier, or like the unwinding is simpler?
I did 10 of them in my first 5 years. And in that time, I think exactly what you're talking about really got to happen. Like I got to keep going like deeper and deeper and deeper. And basically in contrast, I've done 5 over the past 10 years, like basically 18 months, 2.5 years. And so, yeah, I did my most recent one in August, and it had been the longest ever, which since I started, which was 2.5 years. And I think very, very different. It's like getting back on track rather than like deepening from like the place that I went to. And, perhaps people more familiar with like psychotherapy or like psychedelic work, it's kind of the same thing where like, I mean, the difference between going to therapy weekly for a year straight and then take 6 months off, and what's that for those first couple sessions going to be like? It's going to be like, kind of catching the therapist up from the past 6 months, even just kind of catching yourself up to process the last 6 months. Where when you're going weekly, it's just like, cool, I get to come in where I left off, go a little further. Either way, I think still super helpful. And like, yeah, doing it in August just got to like kind of recenter me a bit.
The functional nutritionist that I've worked with, and I do her cleansing protocol. I've done it 4 times now, and it's pretty intensive. And I love how she says it. The further you wander off your path, the harder, more challenging, longer it's going to take you to get back on your path. So if you just take 2 steps off, you're right back on. But if you take the scenic backcountry off trail route, then yeah, you're gonna have to pull out your compass and find a way back to where it is that you're going.
But that also takes me to that like that liminal space and like the confusion that can come up in that. And I think for me, it's like, am I off my path? I don't know. Like, do I need to pull out the compass, or should I just keep trusting as I'm like walking through the woods?
You make a new path at one point. I just did a hike actually a few weeks ago, and we went off trail, and we ended up wandering off trail for way longer than has been possible for me in Texas anyway, in other parts of the world. But here I noticed the parks kind of end. So we were able to, at that point, we had made a whole new trail. So yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, let's talk about liminal space. Like, it's so uncomfortable, and it's what most people entering psychedelics enter into, some often unknowingly. But even I think with, if we're talking about ketamine, if we're talking about psychedelics for spiritual growth and self-development, I think the liminal space actually starts before the psychedelic use. But then once you add psychedelics to the recipe of liminal space, you just get so much further from the starting point. It gets you deeper into that tunnel faster.
Yeah, I think psychedelics is a good way to just let ourselves enter that liminal space. And I think this is even just good medicine for myself to say this at the moment, that I think a lot of us really want to fix the confusion or the not knowing. And I think the actual work or practice is to the same as it always is. Like, can we just be with what is here right now? Yeah. My sense is that it's some pretty old programming, how uncomfortable it can be to sit in like a not knowing or a confusion, or that sense of feeling lost. And yeah, like, can we just make that okay? That, yeah, this is where I am. This is what this moment is. But actually, me trying to grab onto something to get myself out of this is probably going to make it worse and maybe last longer.
It's layered. At the time of this recording and release, we're in the middle of holiday season. And so it's so layered for us. I remember I graduated grad school and I went to go visit my grandmother who was recently diagnosed with dementia. And so I'm sitting with my grandmother and she says, "What are you going to do now?" And I have this full body panic. I was just like, "Oh my God, grandma, I don't know." And, I go into like, I start fumbling with my words and I'm spilling my entire sort of, like thought and emotional process of like, I don't know what I'm about to do. I'm in that liminal space. I didn't have that vocabulary then. And then, uh, a few minutes go by and the conversation shifts somewhere else. And then 30 seconds later, she's like, "So, what are you going to do now that you graduated?" And I was like, "Ok," and then, I give her another answer that's more refined at that point. And then, a few minutes later, "But what are you gonna do now that you graduated?" And then eventually I realized what was happening with her, declining, cognitive abilities, and I just started making things up, and I was like, "I don't know, grandma, I might go join the circus," because I knew she wasn't holding on to anything the way that I was holding on to it. So I love that, um, because I mean, it's just like a fun story, but when I feel like I need an answer and then there's external pressure to deliver the answer, that creates even more pressure. And so many of us, we want to deliver answers to the people asking. We're answering questions. Yeah, question answering devices. There we go. We're question answering devices. And so we want to answer people asking us. And a lot of times, depending on, your family of origin, the question of I'm following my intuition and figuring it out doesn't always land great. And then it's also if you're not landed in, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm collecting puzzle pieces and one day I'm going to create a beautiful puzzle. It's like if you're not sure what you're doing, it creates even more um fear and worry and anxiety, that confusion that you're talking about that's in the liminal space. I want to define liminal space really quickly unless you want to.
No, please go for it.
I have a very simplified version that I use in client work where it's a tunnel. And it's, you're when you enter the tunnel, you're like, "Oh, I think I need to go through this tunnel, whatever it is." And there's different elements of life that enter people into liminal spaces, right? Natural transitions, right? From graduation to whatever's next, job transitions, relationship transitions, health transitions. There's things that just like our path takes us to a tunnel and we're like, cool, I'm going to enter this tunnel. Now, if you think about entering a tunnel, the first, I don't know, few feet, depending how this tunnel is formed, there's still light and you can still see where you came from. And there's still this like turning around going, "Oh yeah, that's where I came from. Maybe I should go back there." But if you keep walking forward into the tunnel, you get to the center of the tunnel where it is pitch black. You don't even know if you can make it back to where you came from. You don't know if this tunnel's ever going to end because at the center of every single tunnel, there is pitch black, just everything that you're talking about: confusion, fear, uncertainty, doubt, a break in faith of like, why did I enter this tunnel? What the hell was I thinking? There was perfectly good sunshine outside of this tunnel. I don't even know how long I've been here because I can't track time passing. And that's when um the juice that we get squeezed and the juice comes out, and it's like, what is it that comes out? Are you able to, what we were talking about in our conversation yesterday, are you able to slow down and be like, I can't see, so I'm not running headfirst towards anything. I literally don't know what if there's ground in front of me. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to take it step by step. I'm going to feel every motion. I'm going to be really intentional with every step. And that's where the patience comes in that we're not societally conditioned to have at all, to have that level of slowing down, presence, as we were talking about yesterday. And then with enough path forward, there's then the light from the other end of the tunnel. And all of a sudden, like all of that weight of uncertainty lifts. And there's so much joy and satisfaction and euphoria of like, holy shit, I did it. I got through the tunnel.
It reminds me of this book Transitions that I read at Naropa that, uses some, like endings, liminal space, beginnings kind of framework. And I feel like just the whole tunnel metaphor that you just gave, like kind of went through the whole arc of what that book talks about too. Yeah, that was really well said. And what I want to put out there in terms of like what's really up for me at the moment that feels difficult is kind of similar to what you were saying about like family asking. And I think that's not nearly as intense as it was for me at this moment than it was, before grad school and such. Like just still having a private practice, there's such a better answer for them and what they're looking for. Than when, I was just kind of like floating off into space.
Yeah.
But this is really interesting to me because, it's basically like really wanting from my partner for me to really hold this masculine polarity in our relationship, which I also want to do too. But there's a piece of it for her where she's really looking to me for a vision. And again, in some ways it's there. And, the next steps are there. At least one level of my next intention is there. But it's interesting to balance how it reminds me of something from Autobiography of a Yogi. There's some quote in there where somebody says, I don't know, I think some guy is giving some woman some shit, very like misogynistic kind of thing. And someone's response is like, we're all feminine before God. We're all kind of in the receptive to that, which I love. And then I like where I go is like, okay, I feel that in myself in terms of like wanting to let myself be in this liminal space, but then also really wanting to show up for my partner and her being like, hey, what's going to make me feel comfortable is you really bringing the vision. And so that's something I'm, just kind of, trying to like balance at the moment, or navigate through.
I have had so many conversations this week, mostly with client work, of if you're seeking safety, security, or anything outside of yourself, you just drilled a hole into that bucket. And no matter what gets poured in is going to come right back out because at the essence, right, it's tell me what's going to happen so that I can feel safe right now, knowing the ending, knowing the outcome, knowing that I can be okay because there's some sort of false sense of future okay.
Yeah.
Also, I do remember what I was going to say earlier is I learned this about myself years ago through I think human design of all things, which, take it or leave it. It's not a modality that sticks with me, but the few things that I've learned about myself through human design have absolutely changed my life. And this was one of them that I have something in my chart that I change identities every 2 years. And that when that unfolded for me, first of all, I looked back and I was like, every 2 years, absolutely every 2 years, like I have everything changes in my life in those 2 years. And it affirmed for me the issues that I've had forever of I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't have a 10-year plan. I'm not playing chess with my life. I am following, my intuition to the next smallest step. And when I look back, like, holy shit, like I've had so much success. Like I've already exceeded expectations of what's possible for my life. And so it's really, again, part of the conversation we had yesterday of like my trust muscle is so strong right now because I've walked through so many of these tunnels because my life changes every 2 years. So I'm in liminal space all the freaking time. So just offering that up. Maybe you should have your human design chart read and see if you have like a 3 or 4 year like inflection point.
Yeah, I know a little bit about it. And I also really like it and what's going on. And I'm a generator. So it like what I'm supposed to do is it really suggests, instead of to just start something, to have and hold an intention and then wait to respond. Basically, wait for like some kind of synchronicity to come and then really respond to that. And similarly, yeah, it's been helpful every time I let myself refocus with that a bit.
Okay. I learned this years ago and it like blew my mind. Inner child healing work. Yes. You know, you go back, you rescue that part of yourself, you give that part of yourself what you needed. You know, how we started this conversation of like, go back and tell that part of you what you needed to hear. And when that lands in your nervous system, it changes the neural pathways, it just ripples through healing, right? When you can experience that now, you experienced it then, and that resolves and you complete the stress cycle. Um, you said it earlier about your 50-year-old self. And so I realized that when I'm in that liminal space and I'm, humaning and I'm freaking out and et cetera, increasingly less, but I'm still human. And then I feel that, like you said, like, oh, that glimpse of like, okay, yeah, whatever it is, it's like that is our older self coming in to rescue this self.
Mm, I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like time is so not linear, and it's incredible what is possible when you are able to work with your patterning, your conditioning in that way to heal the nervous system, to reprogram the subconscious mind, and to experience now what you needed then, but then it resolves the issue then, which clears up space for whatever the heck is next.
As you were talking about that, I was just trying to like feel into being held by that older part of myself who's already lived through this. And yeah, just like wondering, what he might say, which I think is like very much the same. Like, yeah, it's all gonna work out, man. Like, fucking relax.
Exactly.
Oh.
Oh, man. Well, Kevin, anything else you wanna say before we close it down for the day?
Um, no, I think this is a good place to pause. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. We're gonna have you back when you're on the other side of this liminal space and you've harvested all the gold, right? Now I'm having this image of you're in the liminal space, you're in the middle of that tunnel, and you just start collecting rocks, and you come out and you're able to, like, see your collection. So, yeah, we'll have you back so you can report what the harvest is from this round.
Awesome. I look forward to it.
Me too. Hey, friends, thank you so much for joining me today on Ketamine Connections. I hope that this episode inspired you. I hope that it uplifted you. And I hope it just expanded your mind in some way with some perspective shift. We have been running this show for over a year now, which is incredible. And after more than 50 episodes, we have so many different resources to offer you. And we took all of those resources, we put it into one place called the Ketamine Starter Portal. Check that out in the show notes. Everything you need is there. All of our guides, anything that we've talked about on the show is in that portal. And it's also the best way to get in contact with me, since we are not allowed to talk about psychedelics on social media. Being on the email list is the best way to get updates, to get all of the information that you need, and to stay in touch. So I really hope to see you in there.